And welcome to the PHLY Sixers Podcast on a Tuesday following a tough one last night where they pick up the win. But the biggest story, of course, was the Paul George injury news. Try to get a little bit of an update today post-practice. Derek and Kyle at the practice facility. We'll speak to them about what they saw and heard and more hearing about things of any update with the Sixers star. We'll talk about so much more of questions following the Paul George injury, of maybe some possible concerns that you may have or questions you may have going into the start of the regular season, which is now 8 days away for the Sixers, a week away from today from the start of the NBA schedule. So we're right on it to get this thing underway. Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck, I'm Devon Givens, Brianna producing, all of you in the chat. We know why you're here, because you love us. And then you want to hear more about Paul George. So Derek, you were there today. What do we have, man? I mean, we're sitting there waiting. We get a little bit, and then Kyle has to update it. But we'll start with you on.
We had to get an update on the update. Was kind of where we're at today.
Where are you today after being at practice?
Yeah, so Nick in the press conference came out and he said that everything checks out okay regarding Paul's hyperextended left knee, but then says that they will have to do further imaging later today, which is an update. Here's what I'll say. Yesterday, during last night's show, I said, find out before you flip out. Today, I'm going to say, get the imaging before you party. There's no Paul Reed knee victory tour until we get the imaging done. I will say that what we heard today is good news. If there was swelling that Nick had noted, if there was pain that Nick had noted, those would be bad indicators, but nothing is really proof until you've had a good look at that knee, and we just haven't had a good look at that knee yet. So just, managing expectations, just wait to party until you get that imaging done.
Yeah, so I went and I did the additional layer of clarification just to make sure that everyone was on the right and same page together. As Derek says, it's good that Paul came in the morning and was not like, oh man, my knee really hurts and I'm dealing with an issue here. But they have not done, or at least when Nick Nurse had spoken, so that would have been about hour and a half, hour 15 ago at this point, 1:45 on Tuesday afternoon, there had been no imaging done yet. So in terms of, knee structure, all that stuff, I know there are obviously tests you can do without going through the full MRI process. And you guys probably know that better than I do, given that you've had these types of injuries in the past, but they have not formally gone through it. That's supposed to happen at some point this afternoon. I would imagine we will either get a statement at some point later tonight, or maybe Nick Nurse will give us an update. Sixers will give us an update during pregame tomorrow.
Yep.
I think that's probably more likely than a statement tonight, unless there's something that
if there's
they
bad
find
news,
that's
you
bad
can get.
news.
Yeah. Of course, follow PHLY_Sixers on Twitter, and we will provide that update whenever it comes to that account. You follow Kyle and I as well, but PHLY_Sixers will certainly get it.
So it's basically a non-answer of a question. You ask the question, you don't get an answer. And this is what professional teams do anyway. And when they want to put something out there, they just keep it kind of generic and make it seem like they're really answering because they are pros at it, but you don't get much of an answer. But at some point, we're going to get something. And as frustrating as it is, something, right?
That might be the Sixers slogan during the Joel Embiid era.
At some point, you're going to get something.
We're going to get something.
You compete, right? Participation trophy is in the mail. But yeah, at some point, Kyle, we are going to get something that is of substance, whether it's an answer from them or we'll find out if he's available to play on next Wednesday for the home opener. But what we did find out today, Nick Nurse simply pointing out he was not going to play as part of the schedule tomorrow night. And we figured he would play about 2 games, which he did in Minnesota. And now this one last night against the Atlanta Hawks, we said 2 or 3. And this was going to be 2 based on what Nick Nurse revealed what their schedule was looking like for Paul George. So at least he can say that right now because George is not going to play the rest of the preseason. But for right now, though, it still is disappointing for where they are right now, not having to be able to have an answer. And when you brought up me and Derek having these, I mean, you've had broken bones, but you get the x-ray. Of course, the x-ray tells you one thing, and then the MRI is going to tell you the other. They just have a way of getting it done way quicker than we were ever able to get it done. I went the day before, as soon as it happens, got my x-ray on my ACL. well, it looks like a knee sprain. Let's give you a full-length mobile cast that you can just get around in, but you have to get the MRI. MRI is telling me I have a torn ACL, partially meniscus tear and all that stuff. So we have to wait and find out what the MRI ultimately says. It is good that he was there today, just like we mentioned last night when he spoke to Gina Mizell in the locker room. It's cool that he was sitting there to answer, but it doesn't answer how bad it may or may not be, especially when we get to
Turns out you need a doctor to rule whether there's a serious injury or not for a professional athlete. And we can't just predict that by looking at a piece of video and saying, looks like this to me.
Well, again, positive indicators, but more information to come.
Sure. You just want to be 100% sure. And with that, of course, I have a place for him to go. Our presenting sponsor of the show today, Rothman Orthopedics, to get checked out if you want. Our show, as always, during the preseason, brought to you by Rothman Orthopedics and Bet365. We'll tell you about Rothman a little bit later on in the show. So that's the frustrating thing about it. Yeah. Good stuff, but it's not good enough yet.
It was a weird way for Nick to phrase it. Like, I wouldn't have, my first sentence would have been like, everything checks out. And then, by the way, going like, well, we didn't actually run the test, the checks that matter. I would have been like, all right, well, there's been no swelling. He feels fine, but we still need to do more tests. I think the way he phrased it probably got some hopes up that this was in the past, which again, the fact that it's not in the past doesn't mean there is a problem. It just means you have a little more information to wait on. But I think there's a little bit of a messaging disconnect there.
Well, so, I mean, we can just jump right into it then. I think if we're talking about the biggest questions we have in the preseason, isn't this at the top of the list?
Always.
Just, I mean, between Paul, between Joel, and really it's just those two primarily. Are they going to be able to keep these guys healthy? And I can't even say secondarily to that. It's all interconnected. Can they keep them healthy? And is their plan to keep them healthy a plan that also allows the Sixers to win at a high enough level that you're not going into the playoffs with a bad seed, with a bad playoff bracket where you have to run the gauntlet just to get to that conference finals that I know everyone, that's the bar they at least have to clear, right? So can they manage all these things? And look, some of it is out of your control, right? The thing last night with Paul George was not it was just kind of a freak thing in the middle of a game. It wasn't somebody landing on him. He wasn't doing anything particularly strenuous, just takes a wrong step and has an issue there. So are they going to be able to get through this season with these two intact? And what does the plan look like to get there? Because Paul has certainly not had the bubble wrap on him to the extent that Joel has, but from the indicators we've gotten from Tim Bontemps' story yesterday, sort of what we heard from Nick throughout the preseason, Daryl at other times, it seems as though Paul might miss a lot of the same games that we're earmarking that Joel just won't play this. It's a back-to-back. It's a 3-4. He might sit. And while that's all well and good from the health perspective, you then look at it and say, well, if Paul is supposed to be part of the plan to stay afloat and win games without Joel, how do you manage that? And how do you balance those priorities? So I think this has brought that to the forefront even more than it was already there. And now that Paul's going into the season with, even if it's just a small knock, they have to be extra cautious with him. If that means missing the opener, if that means missing a couple of games, they have to be ultra conservative, and that could end up leading to a slow start.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how injuries wouldn't be your number one concern between those two. Obviously, we know about Joel Embiid and his history and Paul George and his recent history. I know he played 74 games last year, but he had a couple of years there with the Clippers that were a lot less healthy. I think sometimes he gets there's a little too much put on his injury history, because outside of that devastating injury with the Pacers early on, he was pretty healthy throughout the Pacers and his Oklahoma City days. But since getting to the Clippers, he had a lot of injury concerns. And obviously now he has whatever that hyperextension will lead to here. Hopefully nothing. But again, we need more information. But yeah, if you would be, I think, kidding yourself if that wasn't your primary concern.
So looking at, as you guys were talking about it and then going into the chat, we've talked about our buddy RJ. We hadn't seen him in a while, and he's back. RJ is back. And
He's here to bring doom and gloom to the chat, apparently.
So this was part of what we talked about pregame and postgame, before and after the Hawks. He says at least George let it known it's over already, right? So that's not true. But he says they let us know it's a waste of time to watch regular season. George hurt and Embiid as well. $212 million. We already known it was a bad idea. I mean, bro is 35 years old.
First of all, no, he's not.
He's 34.
He's 34.
He'll be 35.
People keep aging. I saw someone the other day say he was 36. It's like, when did that happen? That's not a... And I get it. He's in his mid-30s, right? He is not prime Paul George. He's not going toe-to-toe with LeBron James in a playoff series, Paul George. But also, guys are playing deeper and deeper into their careers. And just because Paul George stepped wrong in a preseason game doesn't mean, well, they lit $212 million on fire. Like, it's okay to be concerned. And I would say it's prudent, especially on the organizational side, to say, hey, we have to think about how we're managing these guys. But to sit here on October 15th and be like, well, season's over. Like, take a deep breath. As we say all the time, choose chill. Just settle in for a long season. There are going to be some ups and downs. Let's not throw Paul George out with the bathwater.
It does feel like something in the social media era where you cannot be concerned without being fatalistic. Like anytime you express a concern, it's like you're a hater or you're fatalistic or nothing's going to work out. It's like you can be concerned while also still acknowledging the upside. You can think a team is going to be very good, possibly great, possibly a title. There is not a team in a league where I wouldn't be sitting here and say, doing this show where you go, all right, here are the concerns that I have heading into the season. There's a way to, I think, be concerned and also still keep perspective. But it does seem like everyone just jumps to, oh, well, season's over, waste of money, 4 years, blah, blah, blah.
It's also because it's the Sixers, right? They don't get benefit of the doubt.
No,
and
true.
You could certainly argue they have not earned it in many ways, but it's October. Nothing is won in October. I mean, great example.
October, by the way.
Yeah, not even regular season games in October. Great example. Last season, the Dallas Mavericks started the season were a pretty thoroughly mediocre basketball team, and they transformed their team by adding a couple role players at the deadline, and they go to the finals. Now, I'm not saying that the Sixers are going to the finals. I'm not saying they're going to make some amazing trade midseason. I'm not even telling you that Paul George is going to be healthy to start the year. Just until you actually know something, it doesn't benefit anybody, certainly not yourself, your own mental health, following the team, to the first sign of trouble, just be like, it's over. Oh, the sky is falling.
But Kyle, that's where it is, because there was always that other side of, as soon as something happens, you know it's going to go the other way. It was going to bring up the age of 34 and giving him $200+ million over a 4-year span. That's going to be discussed. It was there already before they signed him of, no, don't do it. Go the other route. You don't need that third star. We talked about that so much during the offseason. And it's October, a freak injury happens, his knee buckles, hyperextends, and here we are. Now, the other frustrating part where you tack onto it is just not getting the answer that you want right away, whether it's good or bad. You want, as a fan, they want to know instantaneously, what is it? Did he tear something? Did he just sprain it? Did he just tweak it where he can put a knee sleeve on it and get back out there and be ready for the 23rd opener? One way or another, you're not going to be happy until you find out. And again, it just goes back to where people were before this happened. You know how it goes in sports. I told you so. I told you.
It's hard to be I told you so before a real game has even been played.
But people will take any chance
you
they
got
have.
a little bit, and it's again, I told you so.
Yeah, no, a lot of sports discourse is being able to prove that you were right.
Correct.
And taking any little morsel and being like, aha, I told you.
Yeah, you guys want to pay attention
over here? That's like, I can appreciate wanting to feel right.
He wanted
and
to take credit for his Kelly Oubre going to the bench prediction being correct when it was Caleb Martin going to the bench.
No, I predicted Eric Gordon starting.
There was 2 parts
and
to
playing
that
role.
prediction.
No.
That part you're talking about, not part of my story.
All right. Well, our friend, though, does
Fake
want
news bot over there. The lying, deceitful media.
Our buddy
Sad.
Rod Mid, though, does ask this question before we shift to some other questions that we may have about this team ahead of the start of the season. Where are you guys concern meter from 1 through 10 today?
On
what?
PG or just
the
the macro injury stuff?
I'm going with the team overall.
I mean, I guess it depends on what your definition of like concerned about them winning a title, concerned of them being out of the second round, concerned of them being good. Like, I think that's tough to like. I still think they're a very good team, and I'm quite confident in that. There are obviously a lot of things that can get in the way of a title run. Ask almost every title outside of the Golden State Warriors who have tried to repeat here in recent decade. It is tough. It is tough to even get back. So, like, I am still probably about where I was on this team 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if bad news comes from Paul George, I will reevaluate that. But I don't think my meter has changed all that much.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like a 3, maybe. I just if we get bad news on Paul, that's one thing. For Paul to leave a preseason game, then everything we've heard is like, yeah, he's probably fine, and maybe that we have to get it looked at. But there's just nothing that has happened that would be like, well, throw the season away. Might as well trade everybody, build around Tyrese Maxey and Ricky Council. Like, there's just no. I understand.
Ricky agrees with that.
You certainly does.
Kelly too.
You guys are allowed to be as irrational, or maybe you. I'm sure you believe you're being rational. You can be as irrational and emotion swinging as you want. That's just. I don't think that's not a healthy way for anyone to live. It's certainly not a healthy way for me to live. So I approach this sort of situation as it's unfortunate. We're dealing with a lack of information right now. And in an ideal world, as we've said 100 times, do you think the three of us on this set were like, you know what we want to do in our heart of hearts? Give the most money possible to a 34-year-old guy rather than a guy who's 27 and ascending? Of course not. But you're not picking from, you don't just walk into a supermarket as an NBA GM and it's like, oh, here we go. I found 27-year-old max player.
In order to get that 27-year-old, you had to give up 5 first-round picks.
It's like, that's just not how the world works. You're dealing with, it's not how basketball works. It's not how any of your lives work. Most of the time, we're picking from baskets of imperfect options and making the best choices and paths that we can out of them. So my concern level is still minimal for right now. I still think their talent level is very high. I think, frankly, if you're the people who believe Tyrese Maxey is equipped to be and should be the number one option, I'm not sure why you care that much. Joel Embiid, he's not the number one guy. Paul George, he's old and overpaid. Tyrese Maxey's the guy. Well, here you go. Here's your opportunity for Tyrese Maxey to be King Superstar MVP candidate. There's the sunshine and rainbows approach. How about that?
Oh man!
Look, there's a bunch of people in chat right now being like, "Oh, well, we were concerned about going in on." Of course, like I don't think anyone is.
Of course, everyone is
right. But like, what was the other option? What was the option? It's we don't have to have the show every time somebody. Maybe they should have traded
for Brandon Ingram that the entire league decided nobody wants because he's not that good.
Yep, absolutely.
Maybe they should have traded for Jimmy Butler, who Pat Riley, who's forgotten more about basketball than the three of us combined and everyone in the chat combined, decided I'm not giving him the money and he's got to earn it. There weren't a lot. Do you want to sign LeBron, who's even older, whose biggest concern was playing with his son this offseason?
No, look, I wish they would have kept McHale all those years ago and just built around him. That we don't have a time machine.
I'm not H.G. Wells. I'm not building the time machine to go back and anyway.
Well, concern level is low right now. We'll see where things go once we get some more information on Paul George and then move the season along. When we come back, we'll get to more questions that we may have lingering over the start of the 24-25 season. We'll do that right here on the PHLY Sixers Podcast.
Well, guys, unlike some of you in the chat, I'm excited to go to games this year. But fortunately for me, because I'm a member of the hated media up here, we have the credentials to go. A lot of other events, though, that I have to go to or want to go to, you got to sometimes pay way more than you want to be able to go to, whether it's a game, it's a concert, it's a comedy show, it's a podcast taping like All the Smoke tour that we just went to last week. You want to go and you just can't find a way to make it work. Well, our friends at Game Time are here to help. They have a new feature, Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier than it was before. And you guys have heard us talk many times already about how Game Time helped us out in Las Vegas, where everything's expensive, right? But we knew we were getting the absolute best deal we could get to go to a show out in the desert in Nevada. So there are all kinds of features in the Game Time app I want you guys to know about going in, right? You have seat views before you buy. So if there's any kind of obstruction, if you're in a weird spot in the arena, theater, whatever it might be, you can find out ahead of time and make sure you're not overpaying for that type of seat. They also have their lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and they have job loss protection. They're going above and beyond for you at Game Time. And we were able to get a great deal on our tickets at the Sphere thanks to Game Time. I don't think we would have been able to go to that show, frankly, if we were not able to use some of the wonderful discounts and features within the Game Time app. So you can see the all-in pricing as well. So when you see that number on the screen in the app, you know it's got all the fees, taxes, whatever is in there. They're not trying to hide anything from you until checkout, as some of the other retailers do. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it, Devon?
Game time.
That's right.
Who? All right, and I'll tell you where you can save some of that money to buy those Game Time tickets with our good friends from TrueMark Financial. TrueMark Financial's Rewards Visa credit card is available right now for you. Earn rewards for each purchase using TrueMark Financial's Rewards Visa credit card. Redeem them for travel and retail gift cards. Perfect for the holiday as well. Build your credit through timely payments and low credit utilization. Enjoying fraud protection with features like zero liability. You don't want anybody tapping into your funds. Need that protection overall. Traditional savings account, basic savings account offering a place to deposit funds, earn interest, and withdraw money as needed. They also have a money market account, certificates as well. TrueMark is the place for you to go. They are a federally insured financial institution by the NCUA and an equal opportunity lender. For more information, visit truemark.com/PHLY. They also have a new golf outing happening October 21st, this upcoming weekend at the Talamore Country Club in Ambler, PA. Registration begins at 9:30 a.m. So make sure you get out there and participate for a good cause, hosting a charity golf outing event to raise money for the financial education and community development in the Philly and surrounding areas. For those who were at the All PHLY golf outing before, you might remember our friends from TrueMark, and this is a benefit their foundation charity. Visit truemark.com/events to sign up. All right, let's get to a few other issues that you may have, or you wanted to jump to something else real quickly.
I'm sick and tired of you. No, you people in the chat. No, I'm just messing around. I mean, it's still like, again, as Derek said, rightfully, this is probably concern 1, 2, and 3 for this team in general, right? It's just health, because they've had the talent in the past to maybe not win the title. I think some of their teams they've had have been exaggerated because it's like, oh, Joel was hurt, but they would have won the title if he was healthy.
No, it's at least the first part of getting past the second round.
Yes, you were more in the conversation.
That damn Atlanta season.
I mean,
that's the one that really pisses me off.
And you go to the conference finals, and like Milwaukee had injuries during the conference finals and are dealing with problems, and so you at least can have a shot to go to the finals that year. I think 2019 has been overstated. Having a strong 6, but only 6 guys who can play is not really a way to win a title. But they've had talent in the past, and they've been undermined by health issues, specifically to Joel. And now one of your top 3 guys, the guy who has stepped into the shoes that he who shall not be named was wearing up until this season, it's another injury-prone guy. Or I shouldn't say injury-prone, but a guy who's had a checkered health history. And so it's not a way to go into a season feeling like, yes, I feel like there's a stable floor underneath the Sixers. Feel like I can bet on this team confidently that they're going to be there in one piece by the time the season ends. You can't say that. And so anybody who is a little concerned, I get it. I stop short of like, well, burn the team down, trade everybody, the contract's a waste. That's not even just a leap too far. It's like 3 or 4 leaps too far.
Yeah. I would say the next concern a lot of people have outside of injuries, and this was expressed quite a bit yesterday in our PHLY Discord. If you're a diehard member, go sign up and you can read Vince's ramblings. But a lot of people just don't believe in Joel Embiid and Paul George to be options 1 and options 3 on a title winner. And I think everything we will talk after this, if you truly believed in your heart of hearts that Joel Embiid is going to be the same force in May and June that he has been in December, you would be able to overlook that, because every title contender has their flaws. Every title contender is imperfect and has things that you can nitpick on. If you believe that Joel Embiid can do it, then I think you're pretty excited about this team. And a lot of fans will be on both sides of that question. A lot of them will look at it and say, well, he hasn't had talent around him, lack of shooting, lack of spacing, injury concerns. If he's healthy with this team, he can be better. I think there's certainly merit to that. A lot of people have a fatalistic view of Joel Embiid and will not have confidence until he actually does it in the postseason and advances to the conference finals. But I think for a lot of people, and again, I'm not saying it's necessarily my concern, but for a lot of people, the number 2 concern is that you just don't believe in maybe 2 of the 3 stars.
And that's a hard thing to get past.
He's going to have to get to the conference finals.
It's very difficult to get past that, especially when you do have the history of the 5 playoff performances where you get to the Eastern Conference semifinals, 4 or 5 where they get to the conference semis and underperform and lose to the Hawks, lose to the Raptors, lose to Boston when you have a 3-2 advantage right there where you can't take advantage of a situation on your home floor to close that one out. That will leave a lot of doubt within your fan base and questioning that very thing, even extending him for that money that he got this offseason, playing for Team USA when you're nursing an injury coming out of a series in which you lost in the first round. Everything is going to be picked at. So when that stuff happens, injury or not, when you get to the regular season, the concern is going to be, and it's a shame because you're talking injury and then level of play. Can you stay healthy? And then when you are healthy, can you perform well enough when you're in that spot to get them over the top? That's a shame. But look, you get paid to do that. You get paid to be the man. You get paid to be the best player in your team. You get paid to be one of the faces of the entire NBA. He has to go out there and do that. And until he does it, there's going to be criticism all the way around. If they get the 3rd seed and it looks like they probably should have gotten the 2nd seed, people are going to pick at that because he didn't play enough games. If he played enough games, maybe they would have been able to jump up to number 2 instead of number 3, and they can start the series at home instead of on the road. If he plays 5 minutes in the All-Star game because he was voted in, and people say, why is he not resting? All of this is stuff that is from what happened before. It just continues to pile up and pile up and pile up. So the concern about him being able to perform in the postseason, everything is going to be picked at. It's that one scab that just continues to be picked at over and over and over again. And it is self-inflicted.
Rightfully so.
Yes.
Look, we can all, I've said this 100 times to you guys here. We can go through and make every excuse if we wanted to and say, look, he had this injury that was this freak thing, and Ben Simmons was the point guard, and Tobias was this guy, and look at the plus minus, and look at his raw stats from the Knicks series. The bottom line is he hasn't been good enough to get them to that next level for one reason or another. Yep. Some of that has been health. Some of that has been performance. Some of that is like mental sharpness, mental awareness, valuing the basketball. We hammered this during the playoffs last year. As great as Joel was at times, he averaged 33 points a game and shot well, had a 50-point game. He had a half paralyzed face and a messed up leg, and all that's admirable. But all that being said, there were stretches in third quarters of games where they could have turned a game from they're up by 5 to 10 points into they're up by 20 and the game is over and the Knicks are packing it in to, Joel just turned the ball over 3 times in 4 possessions. Yep. And now all of a sudden it's a close game that they have to go out and win in crunch time with the guy who's hobbled, with the guy whose conditioning base is not there, because it's all of it, right? And so people who have skepticism about Joel as championship number 1, that's justified by the results and by things like that, in spite of all the excuses you could make. So absolutely, anybody who says it's put up or shut up time It absolutely is. I 100% agree with you. This is full stop the best roster 1 to 15 that they have had since Joel Embiid has been on this team. They've had maybe better top 5, top 6s. You could argue the 2019 year. They were the number 1 seed in the league with him and Ben, with not the deepest team, but a team that fit well together. This is top to bottom the best team that they've had. Maxey is the best counterpart for him. Paul George is the best number 3 guy in terms of both his skill set and his talent. So nobody wants to hear the excuses. I'm on board with that. I'm a believer in Joel. I get into arguments with Vince and other people all the time about you can't trade him. It's a path to nothing for the foreseeable future, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't mean I'm going to sit here and be like, well, if they don't win, it doesn't matter. Of course it matters. Of course he needs to put up results. You can't take pot shots at guys like Jokic and call yourself, the best player in the league, the MVP, all that. And then when the chips are down and you need to make stuff happen, fold. That's if you want to be that guy, the dude at the top of the pyramid in the NBA, you need to deliver. Period, point blank, end of discussion.
And part of that is now the new discussion of what was revealed, some of it in Tim Bontemps' story from ESPN of the Tim Duncan effect of worrying about making sure that he goes that
route. And we
route.
love hearing stuff like that.
That's where it begins. You get a new season, it begins. Now, will you do anything with it? Will you follow up on that? It all looks great. You're saying all the right things. And then when the season starts, are you going to have the same results, or is it going to be different? Is it going to be different where you do get to another Game 6 or Game 7 situation in the second round? You do your part, but others don't. What do you now do in that moment to uplift, to do that next extra small thing to help win by 1 point? So all you need is 1 point to defeat your opponent to advance and move on to that Eastern Conference final. So even if he does play well, we're going to go back. Like Al was saying in the chat in that Game 7 against the Hawks, he had 8 turnovers, but it wasn't his. That's a bad part of it, but we always go back to the Simmons piece of it, of passing to Matisse Thybulle. But there were so many other things from Seth Curry couldn't defend Kevin Huerter. Yep. Right? He couldn't. Now, Seth was
Doc
scoring
Rivers couldn't adjust to Seth Curry not being able to defend Kevin Huerter.
He was scoring on the other end, but what did he do? He gave up just the same amount of number on the other end, and you needed something to combat that. And Simmons didn't do his part. Embiid turned the basketball over. Tobias Harris maybe didn't do his part in that game also. So it all went downhill from there for the Sixers. First of all, they shouldn't have lost Game 1 and then 2 20-point leads in that series anyway. And
that Game 5 is one of the most disgraceful halves in the history of this franchise.
There's never been a Game 7 against the Atlanta Hawks. We're getting off topic, but I'm just bringing up to Al's point. There's always something. And
is there any other negative memories you would like to relive? Because
there's plenty of them out there.
We can go. It's just the point of it is he's going to have to do the next thing to make sure he gets over the top. So even if he's having a great game and Tyrese Maxey is off, it's probably going to go back to him of, well, did you get that extra rebound? Did you grab that extra loose ball? Did you make that extra pass? Because you are the face of this franchise. It's all on you to get them over that hump. So there's a lot there. And look, we have 82 games of talking about them, some of them him, but a lot of them, all of them in totality, where this is going to be a fun conversation all season long. But when we come back, we'll add to some more questions that may be out there ahead of the start of the season. While we do think they are a 50-plus win team, they're not perfect. There are questions. We'll get to our remaining ones right here when we get back on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
All right, guys, you've heard me say it a lot, but flooring it's a lot. It's just a lot of work. Empire Today can help you make that just a little bit easier. With Empire Today, you get shop-at-home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a price match guarantee. Empire Today is so good that they have some copycats, but those copycats can't beat Empire Today on quality, service, or speed, so they advertise low-quality products that Empire simply won't carry. Empire Today won't promise you the lowest price, because anyone who does that is putting flooring in your home that they wouldn't put in theirs. Empire Today keeps shopping for floors simple with a curated product selection. Their philosophy is to help you find what you need, not to overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes. Empire's product team exhaustively combs through thousands of product samples each year to find the perfect styles. And Empire Today has a virtual floor designer, which is a great way to see how new floors will look in any space. It's easy. Just snap a picture and instantly see how new floors will look in your room. Flooring is all Empire Today does. They live and breathe flooring, so you can be confident you're getting honest, upfront advice. And they also service their own warranties. So with Empire Today, you won't have to track down a manufacturer's phone number. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $350 off discount when they use promo code PHLY. Restrictions apply. See EmpireToday.com/PHLY for details.
And we already are at the stage of the season where we start to question what's going on with the injuries for the Sixers. And I got to send my guy, Paul George. I don't know him personally, but I have a place for him to go. Sixers have great doctors, but if they're looking for a second opinion, a third opinion, it goes to our good friends at Rothman Orthopedics. Again, the sponsor of our show today. Everyone has a specialty that they love, like playing basketball. Sometimes you run into some problems. Sometimes you run into some issues, and you need to be able to get back. And Rothman Orthopedics and their physicians are not only specialize in orthopedics and clinical research, but they are fellowship trained to treat specific areas of the body. And since 1970, their physicians have remained committed to research, innovation, and minimally invasive procedures to get you back to what you specialize in. Paul George got you covered. They're Rothman Orthopedics, and they specialize in you. It's not just the 255,000, the volume of new patients and consults that they have Rothman has and they're most proud of, but instead it's their commitment to improving each of their patients' lives through their service and care. And for more than 50 years, they have participated in thousands of groundbreaking research, clinical trials with the goal of advancing knowledge, developing treatments, and improving outcomes for the benefit of their patients. Now, for you, Rothman Orthopedics, specialize in orthopedics and you. Visit rothmanortho.com/PHLY to learn more and make an appointment today. And you can go check out the video that they have of me speaking about my specific injuries and how they help get me back at Rothman Ortho on Twitter. All right.
We got a big old super chat while you were reading those ads, fellas.
I saw it jump up there from our good buddy Mike. Once again, checking in with the big old super chat.
50 euros, baby.
Love when Mike likes to contribute. Gents, two things. One, your work is absolutely great as always, and I'm pretty sure we are all grateful. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. It's always nice to get some of that confirmation there. We appreciate it, especially at the start of the season with so many games ahead of us.
Barely haven't done any work yet, so it's when I hear my work's great, it's like, all right, my work here is done.
And two, although we can all have our opinions, of course, I'm going into fan mode now. It's time to enjoy the Sixers and root for a title, LFG. That's right, Mike.
And I think that's probably...
Thank you, Mike.
We obviously are on a different side of it up here. It's what I try to stress here, right? Like, we spend all offseason debating, here are 8 million different paths they can sign. I mean, we did shows on Dorian Finney-Smith. We did... Could they reinvent John Collins? Like, we talked about so many different iterations of this team and what it could be, but this is the team now. And now it's less like blow it up and this guy making this much money. And it's more, how do these pieces fit? How do they come together? How do they build something as a group? And that's exciting for me. Even when the offseason moves are not as inspiring, we'll say, this time of year is always where you say anything is technically possible. It might not be as likely for every team to get to the promised land, but this team has a good shot. They got some great pieces at the top of the roster, some good depth. So Michael B., I support that sentiment, and I hope there are many more people out there who are ready to have some fun this year.
Yeah. And look, I get, like, there's some people in the chat who I feel like, you know, negativity is almost like a coping mechanism where, like, if you're constantly negative and constantly pointing out why things don't work.
What's that meme of the guy from the History Channel documentary? It's like, I thrive off negativity.
Yeah. But like being a skeptic, or I think it's a little bit of a coping mechanism. And I do think our job is to look at both why it can succeed and what can get in the way of it succeeding. Like, I think we have to be measured. And I don't, like, there are some people who just want optimism. That's not really what we do, because I think it is our job to represent both, like I said, the upside and also the things that could get in the way. But as a fan, if I was just purely a fan and my job wasn't here, look, I understand the imperfections on Joel. I understand the injury risk. You don't get MVP caliber players with this franchise very often. You don't get, if you go out through the history of the Sixers, How many times have they truly been contenders? Is it single digits in terms of seasons? Like there aren't, especially if you like limit it from like post 83, there's like 3. And 2 of them have been with Joel Embiid. I don't understand the doom and gloom. If I was, like I said, if I was just a fan, I don't understand the true doom and gloom. Do a lot of things have to go right? Yes. Just like they have to in almost every championship run. And I'm not saying the odds are great because anytime, first of all, when you have injuries like this, that will dampen the odds. And odds any individual season are never great because it's really, really hard to do. But you have a chance. And I just don't understand why there's so much like, right from the jump, we got Joel Embiid, we got Paul George, Tyrese Maxey is amazing, but I just can't get excited. Then I
especially when you consider there have been 6 consecutive different champions in the NBA. We are not at the point in league history, which has frankly been most of league history, where the league is simply dominated by 1 or 2 guys, not even teams. It's like, okay, this is Magic and Bird. Okay, this is the Jordan era. Okay, it's Kobe and Shaq. It's LeBron. It's Steph. Yeah. That's how it was Bill Russell way back in the day. We're not in that moment. We're not in that time in NBA history. Now, maybe in a few years, we'll look back and Boston has won multiple titles and we'll say this is when Tatum and Brown really asserted themselves at the top of the league pyramid. And it makes me want to vomit saying that out loud and thinking about that. But right now, the league is just not set up for it to be, doom and gloom. They can't win because it has been proven by the results every year for the last 5-6 years. There's been a new champion and a new opportunity for somebody to break through.
And you made a great point earlier when you brought up the Dallas situation where they got off to a horrible start. And then they made the trade and things flipped.
They were very mid in the middle of the season.
Yes, they looked like, oh, man, this Kyrie Irving thing, giving him a 3-year deal wasn't a great idea. And then he looked like Kyrie Irving again. They go out there and they add those 2 players, Daniel Gafford and P.J. Washington, and things fit perfectly for what Jason Kidd wanted to do. They get on a really good run. Even if they didn't get to the finals, getting to the Western Conference Finals would have been a pretty good feat depending on where they were at the start of the season. So anything can happen. Maybe it is your year this time. I don't know. We don't know. That's why they play the 82 and then we see how the playoffs pan out. But yes, things that have happened in the past can make you feel a certain way and trying to protect yourself a little bit more when you're going into it. So when you get there, you say, well, I'm not as hurt anymore because remember, I already knew this was going to happen all the way back in October. So, I mean, RJ has already told us, hey, I already told you guys this was going to happen. Why you signing a 34-year-old $200 million? Okay, cool. Let's see if it changes. Sometimes it changes. Sometimes it stays the same. Let's see if this one changes because this roster is really, really good. And Tyrese Maxey is really good. You hope that he's healthy. You hope Paul George, his information that comes back is not bad and he's able to get out there on the floor sooner rather than later. And Embiid, all we know right now is he's not playing in the preseason. Nothing about the regular season. So if we'd expect him to be out there to start the season, then let's have at it and see how things go because it's going to be a fun season overall regardless.
So what's at the top of your agenda of, hey, I'm it doesn't have to be concerned, but you're at least questioning something going into the year?
I think it's, even though we have had an answer for what we expect it to look like and helping out Yabusele as that backup 5 spot with the length and the switchability from those wings. By the way, right now we're waiting to see if one of those wings is going to be able to play. It's the concern of, is this your backup to the backup when Joel Embiid is out? And how are they going to be able to, with better players out there on the floor with him, how are they going to be able to get past and get through with that as Yabusele as that 5-man? We questioned it if that was a possibility when he was brought in. Go some small ball 5. They're going to be different opponents every night. Maybe last night the Hawks, that was a good matchup for him because you didn't have a Kongwu out there to battle with him with that second unit. But there will be some nights where it's going to be, even though Al Horford is an older guy, he's a savvy dude, man, and he knows how to play that position. So can you get out there and cover that 3-point line when Al Horford decides that he can't hit threes in 3 consecutive games, but you know he's going to make 5 against the Sixers, especially when Yabusele is covering him? Is he going to be able to do those types of things?
Another example would be on the other end, it'd be Dallas, right? They have Lively and Gafford, where both of those guys are above the rim type players. And Yabu, I mean, against big like post players, I think he can hold up.
Sure.
But can he go up there and play above the rim on defense to hang with the Gaffords and the Liveleys and guys like that? That's going to be a real challenge for him.
And Noob says, I'm excited for Yabusele. So am I. I'm curious to see how it plays out too. Doesn't mean that it's not a question, though, going into the start of the season, if he's going to be the primary backup to Andre Drummond when Joel Embiid does not play. So that's something that we've been monitoring, seeing how it goes. Nick Nurse keeps calling his number ahead of a Dembona. And having seen a Dembona, it's the right call. The question, though, is it going to work when he does have to play that 15, maybe 20 minutes backing up Andre Drummond?
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I do have concerns about him and, just the rim protection and whether or not that will be feasible and whether or not you can put enough rebounding around him. I think he's actually rebounded the ball pretty well here in the preseason, but when you go to those small lineups, a lot of the players around him aren't great rebounders. And if you don't have someone like Drummond or at least Embiid, it is hard to make that work. But I'm a little bit intrigued because he has shot the ball relatively well. And that is an option. Like, is he a true stretch five? No, not even as an undersized five. He's not a true stretch five, but he's more of a stretch five than a lot of the options the Sixers, whether that is Drummond, whether that is, hey,
don't
Trez.
you disparage his 3-point
He's shooting
shooting.
better now, but when the first time he was here, he was a worse shooter. Whether that's Trez, whether that's DeAndre Jordan, whether that's even Paul Reed, they have not had anyone who could really make even just an open corner catch and shoot three with any kind of consistency. So I am a little bit intrigued by some of the versatility they have.
Okay, so question for me, because I don't really have anything to add on that. I think you summed that up nicely. What happens with the backup guard rotation? And how does that play out? Because one of the things that Nick apparently said after the game last night with the starting lineup change was wanting to separate Gordon and Lowry a little bit, and that's part of the motivation for moving Gordon, right? And I think there's certainly logic to that, right? And that taps into a lot of what we said in the offseason, which is if you're playing Lowry and Gordon in the backcourt, while I think Lowry with his intelligence will get to the right spots a lot of the time, he's going to get beat for speed quite a bit, right? It's just, he's 38 years old. His athleticism has come down quite a bit. Frankly, we don't know if he'll be healthy. And if Lowry is missing time, if Lowry's off the pace, well, then you're either asking Reggie Jackson to run things, and he has seemed pretty far down Nick Nurse's priority list in the preseason, or Jared McCain is going to have to step up and be a guy who takes charge of that unit when Maxi's off the floor. And it will be easier when Joel Embiid's on the floor, when he's able to have the offense run through him at the elbow and create from there. And it's more, hey, you get shooters around him and guys who can defend, and the rest takes care of itself. But on the nights that he doesn't play, when it's got to be, like Yabusele, or if Drummond's playing heavy minutes, or even if Bona gets his opportunity, that position has a lot of responsibility. You have to move the chess pieces around. You have to make sure that there's some kind of ball handling, downhill skill on the floor. And it's not Lowry. It's a little bit Reggie Jackson. It's not really McCain. We've seen some flashes. And more importantly, who do you pair with him, and how do you, play out these rotations, especially as you're trying to, as we're reminded by the Paul George injury, you want to manage Paul's minutes. You don't want to, in managing Joel, saying, hey, he's playing 30 minutes. You don't want to then say, okay, then, well, Paul is going to play 40 and be on the floor a ton. And so to keep the stars fresh, you don't want to have to lean too heavily on these backup guards they're good complementary players. And we've seen Lowry do some good stuff on both ends of the floor this preseason, but I'm a little concerned about what the lineup combinations will look like and the amount of creation they will have depending on the lineups that are on the floor.
I think part of that is most of them, if not all of them, maybe separate Eric Gordon. And I don't even know that. Is that they don't fit the Kyle Neubeck height test. Because if you add some length there at that guard position, maybe that changes a little bit with how Nick Nurse wants to pair certain guards up together. And then it goes back to the draft with the McCain piece. How does he play with Tyrese Maxey? Well, how does he play with Kyle Lowry? We see it where they give him that support to lean on for the ball handling duties, things that he may not be ready for as far as bringing the ball up and setting the offense up and not being pressured. But it does go to the other end that we discussed on draft night and even summer league and beyond is how do these guards play together? Some of that stuff will be masked by the wings that are out there and certainly whoever's protecting the rim.
I think we saw that last night, by the way. I think, and to go back to Nick's point about taking Gordon maybe away from Lowry a little bit, having Lowry, but then I believe it was Caleb, PG, KJ, and Yabusele. And so that's a lot of length and athleticism between the 1 and 5 spots. That's going to allow you to play someone like a Lowry, like a McCain, whoever it might be there. And that's great. It's just, you're not always going to start Eric Gordon. You're not going to be able to afford to start Eric Gordon every night. And so how does that all play out? There's a lot of tinkering that's going to have to be done throughout the season.
Yeah. I do think that the guard rotation is one of my bigger concerns. And it's one where they have a lot of depth in, but a lot of the depth is fundamentally flawed in a lot of the same ways. We were watching that game last night with Bogey, and it's like that's almost the exact type. I think that is much higher on my priority in-season trade list than like a power forward type. I want someone like that with good size, who has a little bit more ability to defend next to Maxey and can still space the floor. I think that's like a top of my list.
And again, partially why the Dalton Connect thing during the draft was spoken about. Some of the other guards in the draft with some height and some length were also discussed. Not that they would even be playing, but just the possibility of them playing and having that height, that length to be able to play with smaller guards in the backcourt with them. And we'll see. And Mike says, our buddy Mike jumps back in and says, Devon is not going to, Jared's not going to share the floor with Tyrese Maxey. If Jared is good, and I'm hopeful he's either a trade chip or a backup point guard, they will never share the floor.
That does dovetail kind of with this discussion a little bit. So some of the concern or one of the questions you have about how they use the guard group in general is going to hinge on how Tyrese Maxey runs this team, right? Because I didn't feel this way watching last night's game, but I had a lot of people, whether it was in the Discord, people on Twitter who are, replying to me during the game, were expressing concern saying, Tyrese Maxey is not a point guard, blah, 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 like that. And we'll go back and forth on that type of conversation all year. But if Nick Nurse feels that way, well, then maybe you're going to see, again, Maxey Lowry lineups. And you got to get some distribution on the floor. Got to get a guy who's a table setter. And I think that they should be trying to avoid stuff like that at all costs, because I think the beauty of the roster that they built is that you can have those 3 guys from 2 through 4 that are legitimate NBA athletes with great prototypical size, and that they can cover up so many weaknesses. They can play aggressive defense in passing lanes. That's something we were talking with Caleb Martin today after practice, is that Nick Nurse, while he wants to have the solid foundation that a lot of coaches do, he wants them to be more freewheeling and take risks and gamble a little bit so you can create turnovers, get out and run and play with the pace that they want. And if you have to start taking one of those guys off the floor and play a smaller backcourt, whether it's a Gordon, and I know he's bigger than Lowry certainly, but like Gordon, Lowry, McCain, whoever it might be, I think you eat into the potential upside that this team has. So I think a lot rides on Maxey being able to juggle those responsibilities, right? Everyone expects him to be a high-level scorer and shooter, and I think he will be. But can he do that and also be the guy who sets the table for everyone and keeps the offense moving the way it needs to?
Yeah. And I think my last major concern is, look, when you have so much of your salary cap tied up into a guy in Tobias who just fundamentally does – oh, wait, sorry, force of habit. It's just forgot he was not on a team. Boy, is it nice to not have to worry about that.
There you go, Darkness. He brought it up. You just asked if he said anything.
He had to do it.
I was the one who mentioned his name from the 21 Atlanta Hawks series. And,
it is, though. Like, it's I know. Look, Paul George.
We'll see him in 2 weeks.
Paul George is an injury risk, and he is so much better that I just don't understand how you can't be a little bit excited. Like,
you didn't see that
such an upgrade.
23-point game he had in the preseason?
Don't care. Talking about Tobias?
Yeah.
Well, people are mentioning another guy, Klay Thompson, in the chat. Speaking of shows we did, I think we did a whole show on Klay Thompson.
Multiple
He
times.
had a goose egg last night. 3 times he had a goose egg?
I think it was 2 goose egg or 3 bad performances, but a goose egg.
I think he had a straight up goose egg last night where
he has not been good.
No. And that was, we're talking about, hey, take the $50 million you're going to give Paul George, give half of it to Clay. It's like, no.
It's not how that works. You don't split it up and get. Yep.
Please no. Now, obviously, hoping for the best from Clay. I like Clay a lot, but things are looking a little tough for him out there.
Has not been good.
No,
he's pretty far in the oven at this point.
He's not been good. One piece of NBA news that we were unable to get to, wanted to ask you guys about this quickly, was De'Aaron Fox and the news that he turned down a contract extension with the Sacramento Kings and taking a little page out of the Tyrese Maxey book to create some flexibility after they brought in DeMar DeRozan, re-signed their guy, Malik Monk. Soon they're going to have to pay Keegan Murray. And what did you make of the news that De'Aaron Fox decided?
I think he's going to get more money next summer is the biggest thing.
This isn't he's under contract for next year.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. So this would be an extension.
Yep.
So it's basically like if he waits, because the salary cap is expected to go up 10% and you can only get raises at 8%, he will get more money if he waits to sign that extension.
He said no.
Yeah.
Give me my money, man.
I tend to think there's going to be a trade there involving, this is based on nothing but pure speculation. I think white chocolate Kevin Huerter is getting moved at some point, and that'll be the next domino to fall in Sacramento.
Wouldn't surprise anybody after he was replaced in the starting lineup last year.
It just seems like that's kind of the next logical thing that's going to happen out there. We'll see.
And where does he go and who wants him, all that stuff? I don't know. He's not on the Sixers' radar right now. Well,
maybe the Sixers should trade for Kevin Huerter so he can't go off against them in a playoff game. Because if he goes to an Eastern Conference team, it's very well possible.
It is very well possible that he just simply goes off in a big game.
Not like we've seen
Tyrese Maxey
going to Boston.
Not like we've seen that before.
Go to Boston, come off the bench, drop 30. Him and Sam Hauser can not miss in the 10-minute stretch there to drive Kyle nuts against the Sixers. We'll definitely have that for you.
Wait, Brian Knight asked a quick question. Who would be to wash Klay Thompson one-on-one, Devon, Derek, or Kyle? The answer
none of us.
is still none of us.
Absolutely
Klay
not.
would kick my ass up and down the court without even breaking a sweat. Do not get it twisted. When we say things on this show about like this guy's washed or this guy's this guy's
NBA
that.
player standards.
Yes, it is not the PHLY Sixers crew standard.
We might have a chance in Papa Shot as long as you don't give him any time to practice, but that's it.
Might have a chance in Papa Shot against Klay Thompson.
As long as you don't give him any time to practice, because it's a small ball. You got to think it's an adjustment.
All right, one final one here in the super chat. Michael sends another. We appreciate it, Mike. One more. On behalf of the whole group, I hope this is a Bree appreciation super chat. You guys are great. Everyone loves this show, but Bree is fundamental in making it happen. Thank you, Bree.
I can speak for all of us when I say, yes, she is absolutely fundamental in making it happen. And I can say that with certainty because before Bree was our permanent producer, we went through many iterations of chaos.
I was going to say, not to mention anyone by names, but like Kyle and I can be a little picky.
Prickly.
And Bree is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Yes. Not only has Bree done a great job actually producing the show, she puts up with our nonsense, which that raises her.
You don't understand. Like she's in here working on the show afterwards and just clank, clank, clank. There's like an hour's worth of Papa Shot nonstop, and she's perfect.
Yes.
Never said a word about it.
So Michael, the sentiment is obviously echoed by everyone here, including people who aren't involved with the show. Everyone loves Bree. So thank you, Michael, and thank you, Bree, for everything she contributes to the show. We really have to be the
most annoying trio in the world that she got stuck with.
At least duo. I think Devon is...
Nobody dislikes Devon.
Devon and Bree are just stuck with the two of us. It's more what's happening.
Well, folks, send all those thank yous to Bree in the chat. Let her know how much you love her. We also want to tell you guys about the Die Hard program. Sign up. We just got one in the chat. You said Jay signed up to
He
become a
did.
member.
Because of you.
Because
which
of me.
I hate to point it out after you signed up, Jay, but Devon's not super active in the Discord as of yet.
Doesn't mean I won't be when the season starts next week. We'll see. But we thank you, Jay. Everybody sign up for the Die Hard program, become a member, and you get things like this. The Birds, they take on the New York team, the hated New York team. Well, we talked about it. Kind of hate them
stinking Giants, man.
Like a lot, and they look a lot better too right now as the season has continued to go along. Well, we have a watch party and a live show, and that will be on Sunday when the Birds take on New York. It's going to be at State Street Pub, and it's from 12 to 5. It includes a Miller Lite and so much more there when you arrive. So make sure you go check it out.
We don't repeat that on our show.
Very true.
Get them out of here.
Very true. Join everybody and join the PHLY Eagles
right
watch
out that
party
window to my left
as they take on New York, and that is this weekend. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff, but it's going from 12 to 5, where you have that. You have prizes, giveaways, specials at the spot that is State Street Pub. Make sure you go check out the events page, allphly.com.
I'm sorry. Everyone in the chat is like, thanks, Bree the GOAT, all these things. Mr. Sandman out of nowhere goes, why is vanilla bean ice cream white when natural vanilla is dark brown? It's a great question, but why are you thinking about this right now?
Because he's
talking about the Eagles. We're talking about the Sixers in the show. And Mr. Sandman's like, damn, I want some vanilla bean ice cream.
It's the safe space. He felt comfortable asking the question.
Listen, I will always talk about whatever ice cream questions people have. I love ice cream. Derek knows because we're in that media room. I am trying to not eat as much ice cream this year because every single game it felt like last year I had ice cream. But Mr. Sandman, I'm sorry. That took me out. I just looked up and was like, what? Where did that come from? I hope you enjoy a delicious either bowl, cone, cup, whatever you want of ice cream tonight, Mr. Sandman.
In honor, maybe we should have some ice cream tonight in honor of Mr. Sandman. Some vanilla ice cream.
You know where I will do free promo for right now? Have either of you been to 1-900 Ice Cream? It's got a couple locations now. There. So they do. I'm closer to the one that's in Rittenhouse or adjacent to Rittenhouse. They rotate their soft serve every week, and it's they do like exotic flavors. So for example, the 1 week their soft serve twist cone was raspberry and Italian wedding cookie. So they did like a apple cider donut soft serve. Yeah. They do not mess around at that place. So high recommend from me.
All right.
It might be like a class field trip day one day.
We had an ice cream run when we were in the Bahamas. We made sure we got some ice cream.
Yes, we did, from a big conglomerate we won't mention on the show because they don't get free
unless
promo.
They give us the ice cream plug, then hey, we're out.
Well, yeah, then if they're giving us money, then of course I'll sing their praises.
Absolutely. Yeah. Good question though. Why is it?
Why it's Mr. Sandman, I never thought about that. Thank you for sparking this intellectual debate that I'll have to go home and
now you're getting the top flavors, ice cream flavors in the chat. So it's that time. Cookies and cream is the top dog, says Ramid. And let's get to it. Our world famous. It's time for the roll call.
So I have to start with this. Darkness is in the building. And he says, rotate soft serve is every Wednesday at Delilah's. Thank you to Darkness for checking in today. Thank you also.
I thought he was going to say McDonald's because the machine is always down.
Thank you to AA Ron.
Isn't it always down?
Bootzilla.
Boots.
Thank you to my girl Winona. Thank you to Eugene Ross. Thank you to the Ice Cream King of PHLY.
Ice Cream King.
Mr. Sandman in the building.
With some ice cream.
You have to ask Rich about his ice cream story in Detroit. That's the only thing I'll say about that.
Martian Lynch 33. Jay, the new Discord.
What up, Jay? What up, Jay?
What's up to Jay? What's up to Noob? Not to be confused with my last name, obviously. What's up to Andy B, who's wondering whether Nick Sirianni has been fired? I wish I could tell you one way or another. I actually can tell you he has not been fired yet. So.
Do you have an opinion, though?
But Zach and Bo and Fran and the rest of the gang, be a better.
I thought if he
source
lost
on
before
that.
the bye week that he would have been fired, but he got to win.
Thank you to Brian Knight. Thank you to our guy Al, the
What up,
2-minute
Al?
warning.
What
Thank
up?
you to Remo K.
Remo.
Who else we got in here today? Jeffrey Stewart hanging out. I got to show some love to the bull RJ, who was the king of negativity
He's
today.
on fire.
But RJ, we always love having you
It's
here.
good to have him
thank
back.
you.
He was gone for a while, off season.
Good
now
to
the
have you
season
back.
It's time to get back to it.
It's right. So thank you for checking in with us today. Hypothetical Man in the building. Furious in the building. Rick Morse in the building.
Styles. What up?
Spo Babby somewhere in there, I think.
I saw
think
Spo
I
Babby.
saw earlier.
Yeah, I saw Spo Babby. What up,
And
Spo?
gotta say, the last shout out's gotta go to the prince of the chat,
Michael
the
B.
double big super chatter, Michael B, popping in, dropping some gifts, thanking Bree. Thank you to everybody who's still here. Thank you to everybody who was here. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. And one last thank you. Today is my 2-year wedding anniversary. Thank you to my wonderful wife, Kendall. Love you, honey. You're what makes our whole life possible. So
She
thank
must be
you.
an absolute saint.
Listen, you don't know that, but send a thumbs up. Not only to say thank you
happy anniversary
to our super producer, Bree, but as a happy anniversary to my wife. Just to my wife. You don't have to say it to me. You guys put up with me as it is. So thank you to her. Thank you to all of you. We will be back tomorrow. Goodbye, everybody.
She gets a bell. Kendall.
We all silly like the mayor.